chapter, which is entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. So this 14th chapter is elaborating from the previous chapter. So which verse in the previous chapter does it elaborate on specifically? 13th chapter, text 22. So we will have the microphone. Where's the microphone? The roaming one? Yes. So please, Jitendra, can you take one and read 13:22? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to recap from chapter 13, text 22, because the 14th chapter begins with an elaboration of that verse. So we'll read that verse and translation only.
Purusha prakritisto hi
Purusha prakritisto hi
bhukte prakriti jan gunan
bhukte prakriti jan gunam
karanam guna sangosya
karnam guna sangosya
sada sadyoni janmasu.
sada sadyoni janmashu.
Translation. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species.
Very good. So in this verse, what is Krishna talking about? That we meet with Raghav. You can come to the front. Come here. A lot of space here. It's cold over there. Come here. There's a lot of space here. People who come late can come there. Huh? Careful. I want your help to read some slokas as well. There's Bhagavad Gita behind you if you want. The brown one, just behind you. Yeah, you can take that one. The other one next to that. Yeah, that one. Very good. So in this verse, Krishna is talking about that the living entity meets with good and bad amongst various species because of his association with the material nature, the modes of material nature. Because he thinks that he is the enjoyer. The moment we think we are the enjoyer, then immediately we begin to associate with the modes of material nature. Now what those modes are is elaborated in the 14th chapter. So we'll just read the first 5 slokas. We already done the 14th chapter, text 1, shloka and translation. And I'll ask Raghav to read 14.1. Can you read that? Can you pass the microphone? We'll all just take turns. 14.1. Shloka and translation. Okay?
Sri Bhagavanuvacha
Sri Bhagavanuvacha
Param Bhuya Pravakshami
Rambhuya Pravakshami
Jnananam Jnanam Uttamam
Jnanayam Uttamam
Yajñatva Munaya Sarve
Yagyata Punaya Sarve
Param Siddhim Ito Gataha.
Param Siddhim Ito Gata.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection."
So this is elaborating on what the three modes of material nature are. So that by knowing this knowledge, what is the benefit? What's the benefit of this knowledge? Supreme perfection. One attains supreme perfection. And what that supreme perfection is what is that supreme perfection? One comes to know Paramatma, one gets free from the association of the modes of material nature. One is free from that entanglement in the material modes. One becomes free from the bondage. So this is the benefit of this knowledge. And so then we come to understand the super soul, who is Paramatma. When we come to know who is Paramatma, when we come in contact with Paramatma, one gets free from the modes of material nature. And the purport there, Prabhupada talks about the philosophical speculation. Now Srila Prabhupada, he condemns the philosophical speculation method of acquiring the same knowledge. Why does he condemn that? Because we have suffering from the 4 defects, with our own defects, imperfect senses, our own limitations, tendency to make mistakes, to cheat and be cheated. With these imperfections, we cannot come to the perfect understanding of the absolute truth. So therefore, philosophically, if one wants to speculate, the process Prabhupada recommends is one has to hear from a bona fide spiritual master and then try to understand that and discuss that further. That way we are on the right track, otherwise we will be on the wrong track. If we start from our own speculation, we may end up with thinking that we are all God, or God is impersonal. We may end up with all kinds of misconceptions, or material nature is the cause of whole creation. So many misconceptions are there. There are in the Vedas also it is there. There are 6 kinds of misconceptions called a Shad Darshan. We discussed that many times, right? Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Karma, Mimamsa. All these are different types of misconceptions. The impersonal Uttara Mimamsa. All these are different kinds of misconceptions because they don't lead us to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore Prabhupada says, if you have a tendency, if you would like to speculate, you want very mentally very active, you've got active mind, you want to think, you want to philosophize, then hear from bona fide spiritual master and then try to understand that from various angles. That way we can use our tendency. And that we explain in the second verse. Mataji, you can read the second verse. How we get that knowledge.
Idam jnanam upashritya
Inam jnanam upashritya
mam sadhyarmyam agata
vamsham kadam agata
sarge api nopajayante pralaye navyathanti cha. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution.
So this knowledge is not disturbed by creation or destruction, profit or loss, gain or loss. One is not affected by this material mode because material world is always in a state of change. There's always change going on. So because there is changes going on, the modes are always acting on us. Material nature is interacting. The living jiva interacts with the material nature. So there is always changes, agitation going on. So if you have this knowledge, then one will not be disturbed by that. And we can obtain this knowledge by worshipping the lotus feet of spiritual master. Sri Guru Charana Padma, Kyola Bhakati Sadma. Which line in that song says that we get spiritual knowledge worshipping the lotus feet of spiritual master? No, that line also generally, but there is a specific line in that song that talks about we get transcendental knowledge. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita. Divya Gyan means transcendental knowledge. Hriday Prakashita, it is enlightened in the heart. It's illuminated in the heart, revealed in the heart. By worshipping the Sri Guru Charana Padma, lotus feet of the spiritual master. That's why Guru Puja is so important, to worship spiritual master. Because worshipping spiritual master, he gives that knowledge. That's why we chant the Mangala Charan prayers. That's also worshipping the lotus feet of spiritual master in the beginning, when you start speaking. Because if you don't do that, even if you have the knowledge, even if you are glorifying Krishna, we will be doing that to glorify ourselves. Even though we are glorifying Krishna externally, but internally we are thinking how great I am. I have got so much knowledge. I am so learned. So one again can miss the point. Even after being a devotee, even after speaking on Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, whatever one may be speaking, the glorification is Krishna, but actually internally I am glorifying myself. No? So one can still miss the point. That's why spiritual master is most important. So Baldev Vidyabhushan says that by worshipping the lotus feet of spiritual master, one can attain this knowledge. It is not by intelligence and not by IQ and scholarship. It's not these things. These are helpful, but they are not the cause of us getting the knowledge. In of themselves, they can't help us. Okay, Mataji, read text 3. Hello, Mataji.
Mama yogir mahad brahma
Yogir mahad brahma
tasmin garbham Dadamyaham
Tasmin Garbham Dhavamyam
Sambhava Sarvabhudanam
Bhava Sarva Bhutana
Tado Bhavadi Bharata.
Tado Bhavati Bharata.
The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata. Son of Bharata.
Syana Bharata, yes. That has to be changed, yeah. Yes. So what is this verse speaking about? This verse is speaking about? Sorry? Yes. How the creation takes place, how the creation is taking place. The Mahatattva. Mahatattva and Brahman and the relationship between them. How these are connected, that is being described here. That when Mahavishnu breathes out, from the pores of his body, the universes come out. And by that, the Mahatattva gets activated, material nature gets activated, and therefore the creation, maintenance and destruction goes on. And the living entity, he penetrates he comes out of the body of Mahavishnu and enters into the Mahatattva, into the material world. And of course, from the pores of his body, the universes come out, and those universes, in each universe, Mahavishnu enters as Garvaksha Vishnu, and then the universe starts getting created. Each universe individually starts getting created. Such an amazing system it is, actually. Think about it, how wonderfully he does it all. And Krishna is just playing his flute as if he doesn't know anything. That's why Lord Brahma also gets confused. How can he be the source of all? He's just sitting there having breakfast with his friends and playing, snatching samosa from here and gulab jamun from here and throwing something and playing the fool. And he is the source of everything. I can't believe it. Brahma gets confused. So he performs the Brahma Vimohana Leela. So if Brahma can get confused, what is our position then? Right? So therefore it is very deceptive. So it is very easy to make the mistake that the material nature is the source of all everything. So therefore Prabhupada gives example of the scorpion coming out of the rice bag. So one may conclude the rice bag is giving birth to the scorpion, but actually it's not. Similarly, material nature seems to be the cause of all creation. So ultimately, if you see in every philosophy, everyone is trying to understand absolute truth. What is absolute truth? What is the meaning of absolute truth? The source of everything, the cause of all causes, the ultimate cause, right? So what do the Buddhists say is the ultimate cause of everything? Void. Everything comes from void, everything gets into void. It's all meaningless, it's all nothing. Nothing to nothing. In between you have so much problem. That's why you see the Buddhists, when they preach, they say, oh, no problem, just realize you are nothing, then nothing matters, right? Rajnath once had a Facebook saying, it doesn't matter because we aren't matter. That's a pretty clever thing. So,
You are the most thoughtless person I've ever met.
Yeah, that's right. So Buddha is like that, and the Buddhists say if you meet Buddha on the road, you should kill him because everything should be exterminated, everything should be destroyed, everything should become void. So Buddhists conclude absolute truth is void. Then what do the people are followers of Nyaya? What is their conclusion? What is absolute truth for them? No, Nyaya is Gautama Rishi is the head of the Nyaya school. Their absolute truth for them is atom. Everything comes from atom. Everything comes from atom. That is their philosophy. And then Vaisheshika, they say combination of atoms. Atom but Vishesha. That is another variation of same Nyaya. Right? And Sankhya, what is there are two Sankhyas again. There's a atheistic Sankhya and there's a theistic Sankhya. You know what theistic means? Theistic means centered around God. those who believe in God, they're called theists. Those who don't believe in God, they're called atheists. The atheistic Sankhya, also proposed by another Kapila, Prabhupada calls him imposter Kapila, or the fake Kapila, and he says that material nature is the cause of all creation. 24 elements, they are material nature. The Prakriti is the cause. So that's the scorpion and the eggs thing. That material nature is the cause. And that's what modern scientists are saying. Atom is the cause of everything, or the Big Bang is the cause of everything, or material nature is the cause of everything. Life comes from chemicals. We can manufacture life from chemicals. So what the modern scientists are discovering is actually already there in the Vedas. Nothing new they're saying. And that too, great rishis like Gautama Rishi, Kanada Rishi. Kanada Rishi, he formulated the Vaisheshika philosophy. Gautama is, there are many of course in Nyaya, but the main person is Gautama Rishi. The one who cursed Ahalya in Ramayana, the same Gautama Rishi. He is famous for propounding the Nyaya philosophy. And Vaisheshika is this one, Kanada Rishi. There is another Rishi called Kanada. And Sankhya, there are two. There is one by imposter Kapila, and other is by Devoti, son Kapila. That is theistic Sankhya. That Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita earlier we have read, is non-different from Bhakti. That Sankhya, if you study that Sankhya, that's what Prabhupada is talking about here, that Sankhya, where you hear from spiritual master, and then you try to understand based on that. You can ask questions then and discuss it from various angles. That is fine. That is also a kind of philosophical, not speculation, but you can call it speculation if you like, or philosophical argument, discussion you can have, but based on hearing from spiritual master. So we're on the right track. So by doing that, if we do it that way, then we'll eventually come to the same conclusion that Bhakti is the ultimate process. Krishna is Supreme Personality Godhead and Bhakti is ultimate. So then yoga system is there. What does yoga system say? What is the cause of everything? For them, what is the absolute truth for the yoga system? They say consciousness and leading to Paramatma. So the Sankhya, they may go up to the point of Brahman even. They may go to the point of Brahman, but that's about it. They won't go beyond that. Whereas this yoga system, they can go up to Paramatma, because they say consciousness is the cause of everything. And Karma Mimamsa, what do they say is absolute truth? Karma Mimamsa. Karma means activities, duties, your work. Work is the cause of everything. So they, Karma Mimamsa philosophy, they believe in God. They say there is a Supreme. But he has no business. He has nothing to do. He's like a teller in a bank. He gives you good karma, bad karma, good karma, bad karma. He's just a dispenser of karma. Just like a teller in a bank is a dispenser of cash. Receives cash, gives cash. Receives cash, gives cash. Right? They don't care who is getting what. As long as it's your account, you're taking the money, that's it. They are not involved. They have no power over you. They have no power. So there is a Supreme Lord, but he is only kept there just to be a teller. He is not Supreme. There is some Supreme, but he is beyond understanding. So that is the understanding of absolute truth for them. Karma Mimamsa. Uttara Mimamsa also, there are two again, personal and impersonal. The impersonalists say Brahman is the source of everything. Ultimate absolute truth is Brahman. So they don't go beyond Brahman. And they are limited to that. But there's the theistic Uttara Mimamsa. Mimamsa means analysis, philosophical speculation. So ultimate philosophical speculation, they say, ultimately, there is a devotee who follow Karma Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, they come to the conclusion that Bhagavan is ultimate. If you follow the devotional line. If you follow the impersonal line, they'll say Brahman is ultimate, impersonal feature. So Shankaracharya also, Brahman Satya Jagan Mithya, he comes to that point of Brahman. So Uttara Mimamsa, the philosophy is coming from Dattatreya. He is their Acharya. Dattatreya is the Acharya for the Uttara Mimamsa philosophy, ultimate. And Jaimini is the Acharya for Karma Mimamsa. Jaimini, you must have heard his name, Jaimini. Yeah, he came to propound the impersonal philosophy, impersonalism. So Shankaracharya is his agent. He is coming in that sampradaya. So if you go to Shankaracharya, I am sure some of you are from Shankara sampradaya. They will say Dattatreya is the original, our founder acharyas. Their disciplic succession starts from Dattatreya. That's how they claim their authenticity. Just like we say, our starts from Krishna, Brahma, Narada, Vyasa. So they have their own disciplic succession. Starts from Dattatreya through Shankaracharya. Comes like that. But the Vaishnava Acharyas like Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, and of course Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, they don't accept the Supreme as impersonal, as Brahman. They don't accept that. The absolute truth, they say, is personality of Godhead. So therefore the different levels of realization. Different levels of realization. So one may accept Paramatma, one may accept Brahman, but only the Vaishnavas, they accept the Bhagavan, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. All three aspects are accepted by the Vaishnava philosophy. They don't say void, they don't say atom, they don't say nature, they don't say consciousness, they don't say just material elements, material nature is the cause. No, they say ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of everything. And that's very hard to understand. And the only way to understand that is by hearing from a bona fide spiritual master. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita. When he gives the knowledge, one understands. And we have seen examples of Sarvam Bhattacharya. Even a great scholar, Sarvam Bhattacharya, is actually an incarnation of Brihaspati. And who is Brihaspati? He is the priest of the demigods. He is their head pujari. And he got confused when he came to material world in Kali Yuga. He got confused. He thought the absolute truth is impersonal. Why did Brihaspati get confused? How could he get confused rather? Yes, exactly. By hearing impersonal philosophy and associating the impersonalists, he became contaminated. And he was the head of the Jagannath Puri temple. So he is worshipping Jagannath. He is the head of the Jagannath Puri temple. He is in charge of the temple, right? And he is saying the Supreme Lord is impersonal. That these are all just wooden dolls. Just worship them until you become fixed in Brahman. That was his understanding. Until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and smashed all his arguments and defeated all his arguments. And then he realized what a big mistake he had done. Because he is worshipping Jagannath, but thinking that just wooden dolls. So offensive. The impersonal philosophy is very offensive. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Mayavadi, Bada Aparadhi. They are big offenders. They are committing offenses, one cannot. So this verse, here Krishna explains, and it says, this material substance called Brahman is source of birth, and is that Brahman that I impregnate. So Krishna is clearly saying that Brahman by itself will not create. Only when he impregnates Brahman, Brahman starts giving rise to all his universes, Mahavishnu comes, all activity starts. Which making possible the birth of all living beings. So unless he does that, unless Krishna does that, impregnation, Brahman cannot by itself be conscious. So therefore, the big challenge Prabhupada had to the scientists was, how can consciousness come from unconsciousness? How can life come from chemicals? That is not possible. There is no example where you mix some chemicals and you make some life. That's why Prabhupada asked the scientists. They said in future we'll do it. And what was Prabhupada's answer to that? Don't give me a post-dated check. I'm not going to accept that. In future, what do you mean future? No, till now they haven't done that. And it not be possible. Consciousness has to come from consciousness. Life has to come from life. Okay, so that verse, text 3 is very important. It's a key verse. We need to memorize that. We will recite that verse again with the help of Raghav. Text 3. Madhiji, question, yes. Okay, Madhiji has got a question first.
Prabhu, as we were under the impression that this Gautam Maharshi and all those Maharshis, Munis and all, they were all devotees.
Yes.
So how come they became the philosophers of the other impersonal and all those?
Yeah. You see, take example of Gautam Rishi. Gautam Rishi is a very elevated soul. But he presented that philosophy to satisfy those people who have that kind of mentality. Now, okay, there is an interesting point here. You see, he used the Nyaya system philosophy. He propagated Nyaya. Nyaya system says that by philosophical speculation, by mental speculation, by logic and reasoning, you can come to the conclusion that atoms are the cause of the whole creation. Okay, he established that. Now, we don't accept that conclusion. As devotees, we don't accept the conclusion. However, the process he used to arrive at that is also called Nyaya. The tool that he used to come to the conclusion that atoms are the source of everything. Anu means atom. They use that, to use that. That tool is used by the Vaishnavas also. The tool is not a problem. The conclusion that comes from the tool is a problem. So Vyasadeva uses the same Nyaya tool or technique to defeat all the above philosophies, to defeat Buddhism, to defeat impersonalism, to defeat all the 6 systems of philosophy. Through the Bhagavatam, he defeats all the 6 systems and establishes Vaishnavism or personalism. The God is a person as the supreme absolute truth. Bhagavan is the ultimate. He uses that to establish that fact. Whereas if you stick to only Nyaya, one could end up with Gautama Rishi's conclusion that atoms are the cause of everything. So these rishis are very advanced devotees. We should not think they are in Maya. They are very advanced, but they have established a school of thought to satisfy. See, all these 6 systems of philosophy are nothing but different degree of enviousness of Krishna. They all want to deny Krishna. They have one thing in common. They all want to deny Krishna. So earlier the 6 systems of philosophy, they are fighting among themselves. No Nyaya, no Vaisheshika, no it's got to be like this, no it's only like this, only atoms, only consciousness, only material nature. They are all arguing. But now they become very smart. They said, hang on, we all have one common enemy, and that is Krishna. As long as it's not Krishna, we are all happy. It doesn't matter whether atom or combination of atom or consciousness or Brahman, doesn't matter. As long as it's not Krishna, we are happy. So then they say, it doesn't matter, you have your own philosophy. So if you go and preach to them, they'll say, oh, that is very good. Your Bhagavan is for his source. That's also good. You are saying atom is source. That is also good. And you are saying material nature is good. That is also good. Everything good. It doesn't matter because it doesn't matter anyway. It's all false. Brahman Satya Jagan Mithya. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, you are very good. You are chanting Hare Krishna. Very good girl. Keep going. You are a very nice girl. And once they call you nice girl, you can't argue with them anymore. You are that defeated you already. And you can't say and then if you start arguing, then you say, good girls don't argue like this, okay? Then you ask them, how come you are arguing? You can argue, but we can't argue. So all the arguments are twisted like that. So Gautama Rishi has given that facility to give those people a chance to explore that idea. But of course, if among them someone is sincere, they'll realize that atom can't be the source. There has to be something higher than that. Consciousness cannot come from atoms. Atoms by themselves are inanimate. So they will come to the conclusion, but then that will take some time. So these rishis are there to give people the chance to speculate, at least move in the direction towards understanding absolute truth. At least they're trying to understand absolute truth. That is the only reason they are giving these different philosophies. Otherwise, you don't need. If you already know Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, you don't need to read all these things. If you know Ishvara Parama Krishna, they don't need all this. If you know that Mahamantra is the Kali Yuga, Kali Kale Nama Sankirtan, then that is finished. You don't need anything else. You already come to the conclusion. But the reason we need all this is for 2 reasons. One is that if our faith is disturbed, we can go back to these arguments to re-establish us in bhakti. That's one reason. And the second reason is, if someone gives an opposing argument against bhakti, then you can defend the position of bhakti. You can defend Krishna's position and say, no, Krishna is Supreme Personality Godhead, and bhakti, devotion service is the only way to attain Krishna. Under the guidance of spiritual master, this is very important. Guru is important. So all these things we can re-establish. So those who are sincere or innocent, they will realize, yeah, that makes sense. Life can't come from atoms. Life can't come from chemicals. So these philosophies are there in the Vedas only. They're not out of the way. They are in the Vedas only. But they don't come to the final conclusion. They take you up to a certain point to start thinking at least. Because human life is meant for Athato Brahma Jigyasa. So therefore, to get the Vaishnava understanding, one has to come in contact with the pure devotee of the Lord. Only then one will understand these things. Otherwise, will not get that. One is going to miss the point. Yes, Prabhu? Yeah. Now after Prabhu, then.
You said that all 6 systems of philosophy are simply different degrees of envy of Krishna. In one of them, you said the goal of the personalist version of Uttara Mimamsa is Bhagavan.
Yes. If that is the case, then it's not envious, obviously.
Okay.
If anything other than leading to Krishna is Bhagavan, other than Bhagavan, understanding, personal understanding of God, everything else is envious. Because there are two varieties in that also. Yeah, the impersonalists. But the impersonalists don't accept the personal aspect of Uttaravimansa. If you see the classification given by the impersonalists, they say that is not on the 6. You're out of the 6. Out of the 6 means they are out of it completely. So they don't accept. They say it's just a mental sentimentalism, mental speculation. They just dismiss it because they are so sentimentally accepting all this. That's why they say like that. So that is not accepted by them. So if you see with the 6 systems, see on the Sankhya also, the impersonal Sankhya. That is the atheistic Sankhya. So those are all envious of Krishna. That's why Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami says, Krishna nahi mani daitya kari jani. One doesn't accept Krishna as Supreme Lord, daitya means the demon. Very strong. He doesn't spare any words there. Very directly says it. Mataji?
Krishna Prabhu. I just wanted to ask you. You said some groups say that Dattatreya is the source of everything. So they are all Hindus and they will be knowing that Krishna is the main source of everything. Do they stubbornly deny that and or out of jealous, or how does it like? Why do they think that Dattatreya is the source of?
Now they have the sampradaya starting from Dattatreya. Their sampradaya starts from Dattatreya.
But they will be reading like they'll know about Bhagavad Gita and all.
Yeah, but they'll interpret in a different way. They interpret Bhagavad Gita in an impersonal way or whatever way they want to. That's why Shankaracharya did not comment on Srimad Bhagavatam, because you cannot interpret Bhagavatam in an impersonal way. It's very difficult to. He avoided Bhagavatam. And he did not come to Navadvip, Mayapur. He didn't come. He stopped at Puri. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him, enough. Your job was to drive out Buddhism. You have done a good job. Thank you very much. Stop your traveling here. So he established Shankaramat only up to Puri. He wanted to go to Navadvip because that time Navadvip was the center, was Oxford and the Cambridge and the top universities, Yale universities and the Brown universities. That was Navadvip. The top university was Navadvip. He wanted to go there and present his philosophy, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to him and said, no, you are not allowed there. So two things he stayed away from. One is Mayapur Dham and Navadvip Dham, and second is Srimad Bhagavatam. He stayed away from that. Because it's very hard to prove like that. You cannot establish impersonalism.
Thanks, Prabhu.
No problem. Yes, Srimali Prabhu? Can you use the microphone? Yeah.
Prabhu, just the difference between Mahatattva and Brahman, are
Yeah.
they used interchangeably or
They
there's a
seem to be used
difference?
interchangeably. Though if we go by the definition Prabhupada gives, Brahman is the effulgence, and from the Brahman effulgence comes the Mahatattva, that's the covering of the material creation. Whole material creation is covered by the Mahatattva, that's the covering. And from that the 8 elements will come, earth, water, fire, air, ether, like that. So they all evolve from that. So that is the, if you take the strict definition, that's what it is. Okay, so can you please give the microphone? Text 4. No, 3 we finished. 3 you can read again, okay. Yeah, I said 3 again because you want to memorize it, yes. But we'll go to 4 straight after that.
Mama yonirmahad Brahma
Mamayo nirmahat brahma
tasmin garbham dadamyaham
tasmin garbham arayam
sambhava sarvabhutanam
sambhava sarvabhutanam
tato bhavati bharata.
tato bhavati bharata. Read the translation and we'll go to the next verse.
The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, or Sian of Bharata.
Sayanabharta, very good. He's read the corrected version. Good boy. I mean, he's alert. Very good. Okay, Shankar, you want to read the text 4? Would you like to try Sanskrit? Okay, mom can read the Sanskrit and you can read the translation. This is also key verse. Text 4 is also important. We should learn this verse.
सर्वयोनिषु कौन्तेय
Sarvayonishu Kaunteya
मूर्तया सम्भवन्ति या
Murtaya Sambhavantiya
तासं ब्रह्म महद्योनिर्
Asam Brahma Mahadyoni
अहं बीजा प्रदापिता
Aham Bija Pradapita. Translation.
It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father.
Yeah. So the source of all, the father of everyone is Krishna. Prabhupada quoted this verse in quite a few places. One of them I remember from the Saint Francis of Assisi, and they had gone there in Melbourne. That Saint Francis was when Prabhupada went to give the lecture in the seminary there. After the lecture, they all applauded Prabhupada very much, and they asked questions. So they asked the question: Saint Francis is saying, brother tree, sister bird, and he's addressing all the living entities like brother and sister. What does he mean by that? They didn't understand. Their own founder has taught, but they didn't understand. And Prabhupada said, it's there on video also. He said that is real God consciousness. That is real God consciousness. Because he is accepting the father is the same, so we must be brother and sister. So here you can see in this verse is mentioned that Aham Bija Pradapita. I am the seed giving father. So therefore there is no question of having Hindu God, Muslim God, Christian God. God is the father, he is father for everyone. And he may be called by different names, but Supreme Father is one. There is no question of having different fathers. You can't have two Supremes. Supreme is only one. So therefore this verse actually confirms that point, that Aham Bija Pradapita, Sarva Yonishu Kaunteya, all the species of life, all yonis, I am the seed giving father. Did you illustrate text 4 last time?
yes.
We did already, right? So 5 also we did last time, right? Yeah. So now how the living entity gets bound in the material world is explained in text number 5. After having explained that Krishna is the cause of Brahman and Brahman is the cause of all creation, how Krishna is the source of everything, Krishna's position, and now text 5 is going to explain the detail that we talked about in the first verse. In text 1 what Krishna talked about, that's actually being elaborated in text number 5 onwards, of the modes of material nature. Okay? So, Matthew, you want to read text 5? So, you've got a mic there.
सत्वं रजस्तमी इति गुणा प्रकृति संभवः निबध्नन्ति महाबाहो देहे देहिनाम् अव्ययम्. Translation. Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes.
Yes. Shanti Madi, you read the purport?
Hare Krishna. The living entity, because he is transcendental, has nothing to do with this material nature. Still, because he has become conditioned by the material world, he is acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature. Because living entities have different kinds of bodies in terms of the different aspects of nature, they are induced to act according to that nature. This is the cause of the varieties of happiness and distress.
Very good. So what's the main point here?
The three modes of material nature.
Please speak in the microphone. Yeah.
The three modes of material nature is the reason for.
It's not on. The mic is not. They're not able.
Yeah, the three modes of material nature is the cause for all the natures and different varieties of happiness and distress
Yes.
among the species.
Because one associated with three modes, one has got happiness and distress. One in mode of goodness, one experiences happiness. In mode of ignorance, one experiences more suffering. And passion is a mix of both. So these are the cause of varieties of happiness and distress because of the three modes. So therefore the next verse is going to explain what the three modes are from next verse onwards. Okay, please you can come forward here, it will be easier. Yeah.
So this is the illustration for. Oh yeah, it's here, Prabhu.
Mike, I'll hold it. No, it's okay, I can hold it.
So here is the illustration for 14.5. It says material nature, prakriti consists of three modes. So the three modes have different colors. No, goodness is yellow, passion is red, and ignorance is blue. So goodness I've colored in yellow, and passion I forgot I put blue, but I colored red later, and ignorance is blue. When the eternal entity Dehinam comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna Mahabaho, he becomes conditioned, nibadhanti. So I saw how usually badhanti means to be bound, no? Nibadhanti means very bound, completely bound. But Prabhupada has translated it as conditioned. In some places he is translated nibadhanti as conditioned. So nibadhanti, conditioned by these modes. So here I have drawn two people. One is the eternal living entity, and he is in orange because we are eternal living entity. We are detached from this material world, Vairagya, no? And we are in contact with Krishna, and we are serving Krishna nicely. That is the eternal living entity. But the second one, inside he is Vairagya, orange, but outside he is bound by the three modes. See, the eternal living entity under the spell of the three modes. So you can see the three colors there coming in his body. That's just an illustration. And there is less of yellow and more of red and blue. Meaning that we rarely come to the mode of goodness, and mostly we are in the modes of passion and ignorance. So we can see how far away we are from real bhakti. So we have to overcome passion, ignorance, passion, then come to goodness. But then there are moments when we go really into deep Krishna consciousness, usually when we are in misery, or when we are in pain, when we are having difficulties, when people don't respect us or whatever, when we are hurt, like that four Chaturvidha Bhajante Mam. But we have to make it a habit to keep going like that. So living entities have different kinds of bodies in terms of different activities under the different modes, and this is the cause of various kinds of happiness and distress. That's written there. Happiness all smiles and distress all tears.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Are the animals also bound by these three modes, bro?
Yeah, definitely. They are predominant. They are in mode of ignorance because they don't have no choice in how they act. They are completely in the ignorance, but they act according to their nature. The only good thing about animals is their freedom is restricted, so they don't misuse their independence, whereas we can misuse our independence.
So, okay. So, yeah, because they don't have the independence. So I was. So the modes also have an effect. Can the animals become? Can the animals, be on the mode of goodness? Can they transcend to the mode of goodness?
Yes, that is one point I wanted to clarify from what she said. Is that while there's a layers of ignorance, passion, and goodness, certainly from any mode one can go to pure goodness. It's not that you have to go through ignorance to passion, goodness, and only from goodness you can go to pure goodness. No. By the association of devotees, it can happen. Like Narada Muni, he made Mrigari the hunter, he made him a pure devotee. He was in the mode of ignorance and passion. He was not in the mode of goodness. He was torturing the animals and was feeling great pleasure when they were suffering. And then he didn't kill them immediately. He tortured them and let them die in pain. So so sadistic. Such a cruel hunter in the mode of ignorance became a great devotee. So Mrigari is very famous for the example of transcending the mode from mode of ignorance, how one can go to pure goodness, pure by the association of a great devotee like Narada Muni. So Srila Prabhupada also, his representative, is similarly, he gave opportunity for people all over the world from different modes to come to the point of pure goodness. Is it very cold? Is the microwave on? Can you just check if the microwave? Can you see the microwave is on? Microwave, huh? Is that cooling or it's heating? You want to switch it off? You can switch it off maybe if it's cold. Huh? Microwave is blinking. Yeah, it's blinking. So the circuit, the heater is on. Maybe you can switch off the heater. You know how to switch it off, if you don't mind. We can switch it off if it's not heating up. You can show him how to do it. They won't know. They'll put it in a wrong cycle. It'll end up cooling. It says heat. Yeah, I know it says.
But it's not heating, no?
Yeah. Now I just wonder if the circuit is on because that's on the same circuit, you know. Because when you have two heaters, it trips, you know. I just want to know. You can now switch on the heater here if you want. It's all full now. Okay. Good. So if that is on and something else is on, then this trips, you know. Because the load is limited. Okay.
Sorry, Prabhu. So again, this is also linked to the question, that came to my mind in the previous class. So basically, the mode of goodness is the most appropriate platform for bhakti.
Most conducive to bhakti.
Most conducive. So one has to come to the mode of goodness in order to...
No, that's what I'm trying to clarify. That's what, based on what she said, it is not that it's a hierarchy and you can only go through this hierarchy. You can go to mode of pure goodness directly, just like Mrigari the hunter. He was not in the mode of goodness at all. But he was able to transcend the modes straight away by engaging devotional service under the guidance of Narada Muni. So that is possible. So the thing about the modes is that when we are not Krishna conscious, we are under the modes. We should recognize that. Now I am in the mode of ignorance. Or I am being affected by the mode of ignorance. And that is what is called conditioning. Conditioning means if you are used to that. What does the word conditioning mean? Conditioning means you are used to that, you get used to it. And you accept that as a normal behavior. Just like if somebody comes from a background of domestic violence, then they think that is a normal behavior. The slaves in Rome, there is an example Prabhupada gives of the slaves, when they were brought out of slavery and brought to America and given freedom, they were very upset. And then the master said, what? You are being whipped, you are being beaten, you are being asked to serve and are given very little food, and you are miserable, we brought you here to better conditions. They said, no, we want to be whipped, otherwise we won't be happy. You have to beat us and make us work. That is how we are used to. That is called an extreme case of conditioning. Where one accepts that as a norm, that is happiness. That's no different from getting drunk on Friday night and thinking that is happiness. It's no different. Both are ignorance. You think getting whipped is a very low class and getting drunk is very wonderful, very high class. But actually both are ignorance. And that is because of conditioning. One gets used to that. If I don't get drunk, if I don't have a hangover Saturday morning, if I don't vomit all over the bathtub on Saturday morning, then something wrong with my life. I didn't enjoy this weekend. I missed something. Because that's the conditioning. Similarly, eating meat, eating dead bodies. Now that is terrible. It's not something great. But because of conditioning, you think this is very nice. I should eat this. This is good, tasty food. Why am I missing out this? So if they don't eat meat, they become very disturbed. Because they conditioned think this is good taste. Similarly, alcohol also is bitter, rotten grapes. But if you say it takes a while to get used to the horrible taste. And then they're starting, oh, this is very high class, acquired taste. So the conditioning is like that, it works like that. But it doesn't mean that, but one can break out of the conditioning by the association of a pure devotee. Thank you. Yeah.
In Melbourne, one of the Prabhus was giving an example to understand this how to go from mode of goodness to Krishna consciousness. So he said, if you are staying in one suburb, and he said the temple is in Albert Park. So if you are staying in South Melbourne, which is the next suburb, then you can easily go to Albert Park. So if you are in the mode of goodness, you can easily become Krishna conscious. But then, as Prabhu said, from any mode we can go to Krishna consciousness. So when we are lamenting, that is ignorance, no? When we are caught in some distress, we have forgotten who we are, and we are identifying with the body and with the situation. So that's the mode of ignorance. But from there also, like Chaturvidha Bhajanti Mam, Krishna says they are Sukrutis, Sukrutinaha. So when we are from any mode, we can go to Krishna consciousness. Yeah, that's right. But I was just trying to make it very graphical by showing how far we are and how sincerely we should apply ourselves to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
But do the Vedas generally give us the way to move from one mode to the other, or from
Yes.
so the Karm Kand basically helps us to go from ignorance to passion to goodness. But we could move from any to any, but is that the way?
Yes, that's right. Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nishtraigunya Bhavarjana. We already read that in the second chapter. Right? The Vedas mainly deal with the three modes of material nature. So they are trying to bring you to the mode of goodness, hoping that one will be attracted to pure devotional service. But it's not clear. That is why Narada Muni criticizes Vyasdev, saying you wrote all the Vedas and Upanishads, but you never glorified Krishna consciousness directly. That is what is lacking. That's why he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam after that. The Bhagavatam directs you directly to that pure Krishna consciousness. Very good, good point. Okay, so now we'll go to text number 6. Prabhas Krishna Prabhu. Have you got microphone, Shanti Mataji? You can pass the microphone to Prabhas Krishna. He'll read text number 6.
तत्र सत्त्वं निर्मलत्वात् प्रकाशकम् अनामयम् सुखसंगेन बध्नाति ज्ञानसंगेन चानघ. O sinless one, the modes of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode becomes conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge.
Very good. Was not read till now. Sri Mali Prabhu, you have not read? You read the purport.
The living entities conditioned by material nature are of various types. One is happy, another is very active, and another is helpless. All these types of psychological manifestations are causes of the entity's conditioned status in nature. How they are differently conditioned is explained in this section of Bhagavad Gita. The modes of goodness is first considered. The mode of goodness is first considered. The effect of developing the mode of goodness in the material world is that one becomes wiser than those otherwise conditioned. A man in the mode of goodness is not so much affected by material miseries, and he has a sense of advancement in material knowledge. The representative type is the Brahman, who is supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness. This sense of happiness is due to the understanding that in the mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reactions. Actually, in the Vedic literature, it is said that the mode of goodness means greater knowledge and a greater sense of happiness.
Nashat Prabhu, you read the microphone.
The difficulty here is that when a living entity is situated in the mode of goodness, he becomes conditioned to feel that he is advanced in knowledge and is better than others. In this way, he becomes conditioned. The best examples are the scientists and the philosophers, each is very proud of this knowledge, and because they generally improve their living condition, they feel a sort of material happiness. This sense of advanced happiness in conditioned life makes them bound by the mode of goodness of material nature. As such, they are attracted towards working in the mode of goodness. And as long as they have an attraction for working in that way, they have to take some type of body in the modes of nature. Thus, there is no likelihood of liberation or of being transferred to the spiritual world. Repeatedly, one become a philosopher, a scientist, or a poet, and repeatedly become entangled in the same disadvantages of birth and death. But due to the illusion of the material energy, one thinks that that sort of life is pleasant.
Okay. So, what are the main points here?
Basically, once we get
Use the microphone, yeah.
Prabhupada has explained that over here, people like the Brahmins or the poets or philosophers or scientists, they basically get conditioned by doing good things, and because of that, they experience happiness and pleasure and no sinful reactions, or the life is generally good. So they feel that they are, having a good life, so they keep doing that and they get attached to that, and it becomes a repeated cycle. So there is no chance of getting liberated if they get conditioned in this way.
Very good. So, okay, let's summarize first. What are the advantages of mode of goodness? Advantages.
Knowledge and happiness.
Knowledge and happiness. Very good. You get knowledge. Jnana is conducive for knowledge, and it is knowledge and happiness. So we get a higher stage, a higher quality happiness. What are the disadvantages of that? We become attached first, and then become proud. So we feel you're better than others. So what does the pride lead to? It leads eventually to fall down, but it comes to mode of passion. That's goodness is not stable. So the disadvantage of mode of goodness is it is not stable. It has a tendency to degrade to mode of passion, and when passion is also not stable, degrades to mode of ignorance. Therefore, mode of goodness is not the ultimate platform to be in. Though it's a best platform of the three, but still it is not stable. Okay, any other points?
Prabhu, I have got a question here.
Yeah, Prabhu.
This text 6 very clearly says that
Keep quiet.
the mode of goodness is illuminating and it frees one from all sinful reactions.
Yes.
Doesn't that mean that you are liberated in mode of goodness itself? Because why we are when we are free from all sinful reactions, we are bound to this material nature. But
you see, we just discussed the disadvantages, right? What are the disadvantages pointed out by Krishna?
Yeah, that is Srila Prabhupada is telling, but in this looks to me very clearly that sinful reactions, free from sinful reactions.
Yes, one does get free from sinful reaction, but that is not enough. Yeah, more or less. It's not complete for a start. Huh? Yeah, but even then it still there will be some, because it is not a stable platform, therefore there is always a chance that one can. See, I can get free from sinful reaction now, but if you get free from sinful reaction, then there is no karma left. Then one should not exist even. The body, you cannot have a body. To have a body, you must have some karma. That's why even when you get initiated, the spiritual master takes the sinful reaction but leaves something behind. And Prabhupada gives example of the a fan. A fan is connected and is disconnected. It still is rotating for some time. It slows down, then stops. So sinful reactions of the disciple are taken by the Guru, but some karma is still left behind. So one cannot completely get free, because one moment one can be free, but next moment we immediately start thinking something or doing something which we have to. Then immediately the law of the three modes will take over again. So in other words, it's not sustainable. We can't maintain the mode. If you are maintain a mode of goodness all the time, yes, then theoretically one could be free from sin. That's a fact. But being free from sin is not the ultimate platform of liberation. The liberation here is Brahman only. One gets to Brahman realization. One doesn't get associated with the Lord or go to Vaikuntha planets even. One may at the most go to the Brahman level. It's the lowest among all the levels of liberation. So being free from sin is not the only platform. But because we are conditioned, therefore we will act in a certain way. That's what Arjuna is trying to run away from the battlefield, and Krishna is saying, what's the use? You'll go to the forest, and in the forest you'll do the same thing, you'll start fighting there. Your mode of nature is to fight, you'll start fighting. But instead of fighting for me, which is pure goodness, you'll fight for some other cause. And you get implicated again. Again you get karma from that. You see just try to imagine, even if you breathe inside and some microbes are killed, you get reaction straight away. How can you be free from sin? So only for that point in time one may become free from sin by performing activity in mode of goodness, but the next moment we created already another sin. And this we accumulate for millions of lifetimes. Therefore devotion service is the one that removes all inauspiciousness. That Rupa Goswami described in the first chapter of Nectar of Devotion. The 6 characteristics of pure devotion service. Where he says the first characteristic is Kleshagni, free from all the kleshas. Devotion service, because not only it kills the plant of the sinful desires, sinful activities, but it also removes sinful desire even. Even the desire is removed. It uproots from the very root. Therefore it is complete purification. Whereas devotion service, the mode of goodness, may stop the growth of the sinful plant, but the seeds are still there. Any moment the opportunity comes, they'll grow. That's why you see great Rishi like Saubhari Muni, they went underwater to perform meditation, to be in the mode of goodness. Was he successful? He saw the fishes are mating, he got agitated by seeing the fish mating. He wanted to go and get married. All his tapasya is gone. So mode of goodness, one cannot maintain that. He went to the extreme, went underwater. So on land is too dangerous. Underwater I'll be safe. There also he was not safe. Isn't it? Yeah, so that's why the mode of goodness. But having said that, the mode of goodness gives one a peaceful mind, so one can understand and hear spiritual topics. That is the main advantage of mode of goodness. It is very conducive to Krishna consciousness. It makes one understand and gives good intelligence to understand all these topics. And one has the patience to hear all this. One has the determination to perform the austerity of sitting in class for 1 hour or 1.5 hours. If one is not having the mode of goodness, it's very difficult. So for passionate people, try getting a teenager to sit here, except these devotees. They can't sit here for 1 hour. It's impossible. The mind is too disturbed because they are in a passion and ignorance, and they have to be active. So for them, you give them prasadam and kirtan and like that. That's how they stabilize their mind.
Reminded of one thing.
Yeah. Anyway, you're going to explain the picture also.
The boys are going to perform something.
Oh.
I was reminded of 2 points. One was Bhakti Charu Maharaj said, when you have rested enough, when you're peaceful, only then you can listen to whatever Paramatma is saying. Otherwise, if we are very passionate, even if Paramatma will not even talk to you because you're so passionate, you're so caught up in your whatever activities you're doing. You're so active that Paramatma thinks he's so busy, even if I speak, he will not listen. So Paramatma will not speak. So that was one point by Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And another point, Keshav Prabhu was telling in Melbourne, once when his Guru Maharaj, I think I've already told you this, but I'll tell it in relation to this, the mode of goodness. When his Guru Maharaj, Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj had come, he needed some physiotherapy. So Keshav Prabhu took him to one physiotherapist who practices very close to the temple. And when after that physiotherapy, that therapist did the physiotherapy for Maharaj, he said, it's okay, I won't charge for this session because he seems like a holy man. So Keshav Prabhu said, yes, he is my spiritual master. So he didn't charge. And as they were walking out, Maharaj was telling Keshav Prabhu, wow, he's such a nice person. He didn't charge. See, he's a mode of goodness person. And Maharaj told, don't tell about this to all the other devotees. They'll take full advantage of him then. They'll start taking free sessions, no? And then, Keshava Prabhu was saying, see, he is in the mode of goodness. Then one could think, if they heard this pastime, this episode, they could think, oh, devotees are practicing Krishna consciousness, but they are trying to take advantage and take free sessions from the physiotherapist. And this physiotherapist, he is not even practicing Krishna consciousness, but he is better than the others. Apparently, it will seem like that. But see, the mode of goodness, he is in the mode of goodness. He is not practicing bhakti, and he is not getting strength from bhakti to carry on like that. He is just goodness. But it can become unstable, and he can fall down to the mode of passion or ignorance. I don't know, does that make sense? Does that point make sense?
Yeah. See, because devotee is engaged in devotional service doesn't mean that he's always in the mode of goodness. That's a default. We have our modes. Our conditioning is still there. That's why Prabhupada said, if you are not careful, if you are neglectful in devotional service, then our hippie seeds sprout again. Because those desires are still sitting there, not completely purified. If you are not carefully engaged in devotional service, those desires will come back again and will end up committing sinful activities. So just because you are practicing devotional service doesn't mean we are beyond that stage, unless one is very advanced. So here Arjuna is referred to as Anaga. Anaga means sinless one. Because he is the eternal associate of the Lord, so he is sinless. He doesn't commit sin. Okay, so you want to explain the text 6?
Before that, we'll get the boys to perform a small thing, just to understand.
Okay.
Okay. Arvind, can you read the first 2 lines of this purport? This. It's the purport which we are doing now, 4.6.
14.6.
Oh, sorry, 14.6.
Yeah.
The living entities conditioned by material nature are of various types. One is happy, another is very active, and another is helpless.
Okay. So, the 3 modes. So, goodness, passion and ignorance. And those 2 are already wearing the same colors only.
That's good arrangement.
Only he had to wear yellow today.
Imagine that's yellow color.
So, Arvind is, can you show them? So, Arvind, yeah.
On the camera.
Which mode are you representing?
Goodness.
And what's the quality of that mode?
Happiness.
So, that's it. Okay. Aditya, which mode are you representing?
Passion.
And what's the color of that mode?
Red.
So, you're wearing red. Okay. Aditya, Aniket,
And so the quality of that is, just hold the quality.
Quality of that is?
Action.
Active.
Active.
Okay.
Hold that up, please. Hold it up.
Hold it up.
Aditya, hold it up. They can't see from your hand.
Aniket,
Show
mode
that
of
side.
ignorance. Mode of ignorance. And what is the quality? Helpless.
Yeah, show it to the camera. Show it in front of
Like
the
that, show everyone.
Aditya, nobody can
Okay,
see there.
Now,
Stand side by side.
Arvind is going to show how they feel in the mode of goodness. Yes, can you show?
Microphone.
What is that? Happy. Yeah. Aditya, can you show? And that is?
Active.
Active. Aditya A, active, and Aditya A.
Oh, very good. The letters are coinciding.
And, yeah. Can you show? And what is that? Helpless. And that is H, A, H. What is that? Ha. H, A, H. It's easy to remember. Mode of goodness, H, happy. Mode of passion, A, active. Mode of ignorance, H, helpless. H, A, H. Ha. Thank you.
Very well. Good boys. Now you want to be in mode of goodness. Sit quietly. Not active, not helpless. Let's say you're left to be helpless. I have to sit quietly now. You're acting now. You have to live the action. Okay. Good.
Okay, so this is the...
Yeah, I can show it to you. Yeah. Read it out and show.
Yeah. So, tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakasham prakashakam anamayam Sukha-sangena badhnati jnana-sangena chanagha. O sinless one, Anagha, the mode of goodness, Sattvam, being purer than the others, Nirmalatvat, Nirmala is pure, is illuminating, Prakashakam, Anamayam, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Then those situated in that mode become conditioned, Badhnati, by a sense of happiness, Sukha Sangena, and knowledge, Jnana Sangena. So I have shown that this person in the mode of goodness, there is a light emanating from his head everywhere. Wherever I have drawn the mode of person, goodness person, there's light coming from his head, that is Prakashakam, and it's the mode of goodness color is yellow. And here he is wiser than the conditioned. So here it is the mode of goodness person, and the conditioned person is in black, and there are no rays coming from his head. It's all confused and cloudy. And the material miseries, that is the tapatraya, the trident, he is far from that, not so affected by the material miseries. So the tapatraya is here, and the mode of goodness person is far away from that. He is not so affected. And this material knowledge, he has a sense of advancement in material knowledge, and sinful reactions, he is free, more or less free from the sinful reactions. And here there is the speech bubble, he is saying, I am better than the others, I am more advanced than the others in knowledge. And here is the person, he is bound by the ropes, yellow ropes, he is bound by the yellow ropes of the mode of goodness. And he says this sort of life is pleasant, and repeatedly he becomes entangled in the disadvantages of this chakra of birth and death. So that is just to help to remember the mode of goodness. Thank you.
Very good. So once again to recap, what are the advantages of mode of goodness? Happiness and knowledge. And what are the disadvantages? Creates attachment, pride, and tendency to slide to the lower nature. Also another point to remember is that mode of goodness is still binds us to the material world. It's still binding. Though as you said in the picture, the trident is not so sharp. So the modes always bind us. The binding is very tight in the mode of ignorance, more loose in the mode of passion, and much more looser in the mode of goodness. So it is so loose that one thinks that one is free, but actually one is not free. So that conditioning of the mode of goodness is that one starts thinking that one is actually liberated when one is not. That gives a false sense of liberation. It's not really there. And therefore you think you're better than others, and then the degradation. The pride comes, then arrogance, and then the fall down starts. Okay, we'll go to text 7 now. Yes, Prabhu. Yep.
If one is in the mode of goodness and remains that way their entire life, and if they've accrued enough good karma, then they go to the higher planets.
Yeah, first of all, one can't remain in the mode of goodness. Modes are very active, and they always infect us severely. Very difficult to remain always in the mode of goodness. Very, very difficult.
Right. But if one is in the
predominantly in the mode of goodness, we could say that.
In the mode of goodness, and then they go
to the higher planets. Yes, that's true.
The heavenly planets are characterized by a higher level of sense enjoyment.
Yes.
Wealth.
Yeah.
Women, all of that.
Yeah.
So which are usually mode of passion activities, so how can the reward for a life of goodness be passionate activities?
They're based on the desire of the living entity. Now you got good karma from mode of goodness. You can utilize it the way you desire. Now see, if I am forcing myself to act in the mode of goodness with the idea of getting in future I'll enjoy, the passion is still there, but I'm using mode of goodness to create enjoyment for myself, then one gets bound. So it's just like if you've got a credit card, you got some credit on that. You can use up the credit. Once you used up the credit, you got to come back here to the material world and again go through the whole cycle. So the mode of goodness doesn't lead to mode of passion, not directly, but our desires take us there.
No, it just seems like the reward for goodness is an opportunity to engage in passion.
Yeah, but that's the desire. That's based on the desire. It's not that what is. It's not automatic. It depends on the desire. In mode of goodness, the reward could be a pure devotional service. It could very well be.
Well, that's it. And the devotee comes into the picture.
The intervention, yes, the devotee has to intervene. Right,
If
right.
they don't, then
Then one can remain in the mode of goodness predominantly and enjoy at that level. One could do that as well. But in the heavenly plan, it's very hard because the passion is so strong there. There is not much ignorance, except when the demons start attacking them, then the fear comes. So ignorance is there, but to less extent. And the suffering is also very less. Even childbirth is very instantaneous. And as soon as children are born, they're straight 16-year-old. They won't go through babyhood and all that. Very quickly they become 16-year-old. And they remain at 21 for thousands of years, at age 21. And suddenly they grow old and die. It's all of a sudden it happens. Birth is very quick, pregnancy is quick, and death is very quick also. In between there's a lot of enjoyment. So the mode of passion is attractive because you feel you can enjoy more.
that's my point. After cultivating the mode of goodness for so long, if the reward is doing all of those things, what was the point in the first place?
Because I'm saying they're using the mode of goodness with the idea that I can enjoy in the mode of passion. They're thinking like that. Not everyone, but those people you're referring to, those category, they're thinking I'm waiting for the reward, which is they think the mode of passion is the reward. Because the desires are there, no, it's their desire.
So let's say someone cultivated the mode of goodness but didn't have that desire.
Yeah.
What would they get?
They would be able to understand more knowledge. They would get their knowledge will increase. And their happiness will be more stable, not disturbed. Because in a mode of passion, the happiness has got up and down. It's not stable. Sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're miserable, because passion leads to attachment. Passion is attachment. When there's strong attachment, if someone you love, they can give you a lot of pleasure, they can also give you a lot of pain. Isn't it? Because why is the pleasure and pain is there? Because of attachment. So when you become, that's what Prabhupada is explaining, when you get attached to the mode of goodness, that attachment to the mode of goodness itself will create a problem when that is not there. One becomes attached to the mode. So for example, if you are attached to the mode of goodness, you have to take bath. Let's say there's no water. Then you're completely disturbed. But the devotee says, alright, there's no water, I'll still chant Hare Krishna. Right? So the desire of the living entity is what, not that good mode of goodness, automatically the reward is mode of passion. No, it's not the case. Because the desire is there to enjoy in the mode of passion. Therefore the mode of goodness is utilized in the karma kanda to legitimately create enough bank balance so you can enjoy in the mode of passion, you can use it all up. When that's finished, two things can happen. One thing, realize that is not going to satisfy me. I better not go for it again, that's enough. Or one may say, that's finished now, better go back and do some more karma, some more good karma, create some more credit, again I'll come back and enjoy here again. Depends on when the living entity realizes his mistake. The foolish entity wants to go back into that mode of passion enjoyment. Oh boy, that is great, I'm going to get back into it. Whereas one who is a little intelligent and discerning will think, hang on, I didn't enjoy that as much as I thought I would enjoy. My friends told me that going to the pub and getting drunk was great, but I didn't enjoy it at all. I don't think that was so great. Actually, it's stupid. So when that intelligence dawns on him, like she said, if Paramatma is speaking, if we are willing to hear that, that or not, that is a bluff. I was much better off having some other mode of goodness, enjoyment. Like for example, people go to the parks and gardens, that's mode of goodness. They go to the city in the mode of passion, watching movies and going for parties, that's mode of passion. And mode of ignorance, they get drunk and eat meat and smoke cigarettes and take drugs. Different ways people try to find enjoyment.
So that brings me to my point. So I suppose that's why there are different kinds of heavenly planets as well. Because
Yes.
even when one lives a life of goodness depending on their desire.
Correct.
If they go to the heavenly planets without the desire for material enjoyment, then they might go to Tapaloka or something and continue austerity there
Correct.
instead of enjoying or
Correct.
engaging in sense
Correct.
enjoyment.
And that is prompted more by fear of the suffering. If I better do this, otherwise I'll end up suffering in the material world. To avoid the suffering, one may do it. To enjoy happiness in the mode of passion, one may do it. One may have different motivation. Like Brahmaloka also there's goodness. But there it's more saintly. But Indraloka is more passionate. So the facility to enjoy, you're right. So it depends on which of the higher planets there are. There's different degrees. Only on the Earth planet it is balanced, such that we don't get attached to too much to one of them. And we have enough impetus to take up devotion service. If a devotee comes along, we'll listen. Oh, what he's saying makes sense. I should take it up. Are you okay with? You're okay? Are you not finished? Yeah, okay, all right. We'll come back to you.
Sorry for that, Prabhu. So if the desire for being passionate is there and the person is in the mode of goodness, he can very well enjoy that desire for passion, in the current life.
See, you can't enjoy passion in the mode of goodness. It's conflicting.
Yeah.
So if you want, the enjoyment is either happiness, goodness, or passion. Of course, there can be overlaps are there. It's not black and white. There's always overlaps, where percentages will be. There'll always be overlaps. It's not pure only goodness or only passion or only ignorance. It's not like that. There's always be elements of percentages will be there.
But what you said was since he had the desire to enjoy in the mode of passion, he went to the higher planets.
Correct.
In spite of the fact that he was in the mode of goodness. He was in the mode of goodness, but he had desire, to be passionate. That's why he went to the higher planets.
Correct.
But if he had the desire of being passionate in the first place, he could have enjoyed it in the current life itself, isn't it, Prabhu?
Yeah,
So
but
instead
see, but he wants a higher level of the passion itself has a different degrees of happiness in that enjoyment. This enjoyment is not enough. I want more enjoyment. Why people leave India and come to Australia? They think the passionate is more passion is there. And then they go to America for that. Further. In America they say East Coast is less, West Coast is more passionate. They'll go to the West Coast. California is better. So they have all these plans of, and then California is not enough. I should go to Indraloka. That's why when there's stories there, like Aruna's story, when the sun god's charity, when the sun had to stop because of a curse of a woman. There was one, I think I told the story once. Last time, did? Ventivala told, yeah. Yeah. So when that lady, she was told your husband is going to die by sunrise, she said, okay, I curse the sun not to rise in the morning. The son had a holiday and Aruna was asked, okay, you got one day off, what do you want to do? He said, I'll go to Indraloka. He chose, he is a chariot of sun god. And he chose, I'll go to Indraloka. That's my desire. One day I want to take a break. Sun never stops, but this happened once in history. A day off. This is my annual leave. One day in the day of whole creation. So that depends on desire. So if one wants to, what degree one has. So the more enjoyment we want, the more you have to build up your punya karya. You do more austerities to build it up. But ultimately one realizes that this is not satisfying me. That's the point waiting for. Realize this is not going to. 5th chapter Krishna says that. Which is that verse? Yahi samsoja bhoga dukkha yonevate. And adi antavantakanti. They're temporary and they're not satisfying. Nateshu ramate buddha. Become Buddha, become a wise person. He says, no, I don't want to indulge in this. This is waste of time. This is stupid. So one has to come to that realization. Back to Jitendra. Anything you want to add on that? Alright. We'll take it up. More will be coming up. I wanted to also say to both of you that there will be more opportunities for this discussion in the later verses because Krishna is going to elaborate on these points we are talking about. They're already discussed later. So you might as well do one more verse before we wind up today. Yeah, bro? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Just Janardhan Prabhu, yes, you don't read the verse you read today. Text 7.
Hare Krishna. Rajo ragatmakam vidhi
Rajoragatmakam Vidhi.
Trishna Sanga Samudbhavam
Krishna Sangasadubhavam.
Tannibhadnati Kaunteya
Tannibadnati Kaunteya.
Karma Sangena Dehinam.
Karma Sangena Dehinam.
The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longing, O son of Kunti, and because of this the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions.
Okay. No, who has not read the pub? Huh? Or yes, Mathura, yes. I'm wondering who has not read. Yes, purport.
The mode of passion is characterized by the attraction between man and woman. Woman has attraction for men and man has attraction for women. This is called the mode of passion. And when the mode of passion is increased, one develops the hankering of material enjoyment. He wants to enjoy sense gratification. For sense gratification, a man in the mode of passion wants some honor in society. Honor in society.
Also, horror also.
Wants some honor in society or in the nation, and he wants to be have a happy family with nice children, wife and house. There are the products of a mode of passion. As long as one is hankering after these things, he has to work very hard. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that he becomes associated with the fruits of his activities and thus becomes bound by such activities. In order to please his wife, children, and society, and to keep up his prestige, one has to work. Therefore, the whole material world is more or less in the mode of passion. Modern civilization is considered to be advanced in the standard of mode of passion. For merely the advanced condition was considered to be the mode of goodness. If there is no liberation for those in the mode of goodness, what to speak of those who are entangled in the mode of passion?
So, Mataji, what's the main point here?
So here Prabhupada is explaining what is the mode of passion and how we all are engaged serving our families and earning money.
Okay. What other points anyone like to add in that? What are the characteristics of mode of passion? One by one. There are so many I can't hear. Rajika Mataji, start. We'll go this way.
They want honor in society,
They want
nation,
honor,
and
yes.
want to have a happy family.
One wants honor, one wants happy family. One wants sense gratification. What else?
One has to work very hard.
Prestige, and one has to work very hard. Right? Prestige, one is concerned with prestige, and one wants to work very hard for that, to maintain that. One had unlimited desires and longings, very good. And also the different grades of passion. One wants to increase the grade of passion. I was seeing some ads somewhere, I don't know where I saw that. Some ads. One house with 19 garages. 19 cars they have, 20 cars. One house. And the man can only drive one car. He can't sit in 2 cars even. What's the point? Buying some $50 million property. Don't know what he has got, but he is still working very hard. Because the desire of mode of passion is so strong that one will not stop. One will think, no, this is the standard. I should go on working till my last breath, accumulating more and more. But everyone else can see it, but they can't see it. They think, no, I have to be number one, Fortune 500 companies. I have to go forward. And that is what is encouraged everywhere, in education system, at workplace, everywhere the mode of passion is encouraged. And that is seen as success. Even amongst devotees, the mode of passion is what gets recognized the most. Recognition is very important. That's the Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj, he told us the example, right? And that as long as you can, what is that saying he said? Prabhupada Krishna knows that very well. It's not Lincoln actually. He corrected it next year. He said somebody else. There's no limit to the. Use the microphone. Yeah, you got it right, so you can use the mic now. He was testing without mic. Just to be sure he's right. Yeah, that's the right one. There's no limit.
There's no limit to the wonderful things that people can achieve working together, as long as it does not matter who gets the credit.
Yeah. The wanting to get the credit is mode of passion. Wanting to work without credit is mode of goodness. So this American president is encouraging people to rise above passion to come to mode of goodness. So that's the link between passion and goodness and passion. So what is the destiny of mode of passion? Yeah, remain in the material world. That's it. No chance of liberation. Very difficult from, unless one can come to the mode of pure goodness. So we'll hand over to Sharmukhi. You had a question too? Yeah.
It is mentioned here. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that he becomes associated with the fruits of his activities, and thus. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that he becomes the passionate people, becomes associated with the fruits of his activities, and thus becomes bound by such activities.
Yeah, so
attached
one
to
gets
the
attached,
fruits.
one gets bound. The mode of passion of binding is more tighter than mode of goodness. More one gets bound, and more one gets caught up in that. Very hard to pull out of that. Once you get into the rat race, you don't want to come out. You want to be there and want to keep up with the Jones. So one is driven by the mode of passion to keep continuing deeper and deeper and getting more entangled. Example is given in the Bhagavatam of a fly that gets into the cobweb. When a fly enters the cobweb, what happens? It gets stuck. When it gets stuck, what does it do? He struggles to get out. But actually the more he struggles, the more he gets entangled. Whereas a spider, he walks on a web and he doesn't get stuck and he catches the fly. So like that, the material nature, Maya, she catches the living entity. She covers the living entity and pulls him down. So mode of passion, one gets covered. The covering is more. Mode of goodness, the covering is thin. Mode of passion, the covering is more thick. We already read that in the earlier chapter of Gita, right? What example is given of the three coverings? You want to chant the verse? Do you know the verse?
धूमेन व्रियते वह्नि तथादर्शो मलिन च तथोल्बेनावृतो गर्भस् तथा तेनेदमावृतम्. It's like the धूमेन व्रियते वह्नि, the smoke covering the fire, यथादर्शो मलिन च, like the dust covering the mirror, and like the fetus covering the womb. So the fetus covering the womb is the most covered. The medium covered is the dust covering the mirror, and the least one is the fire, the smoke covering the fire.
Yeah.
So mode of goodness and passion and ignorance.
So the more one pursues the mode of passion, the more one gets entangled and becomes harder and harder to come out of that. So next week we have Rath Yatra.
One more thing.
Yeah. Yes. Go on.
When we were in Mayapur, one Prabhupada disciple, her name is Mahamaya Mataji, she was telling us how she read one book called Space. And we were doing the Japa retreat, and we were all Matajis, and she was talking about this book called Space. And I thought, oh my God, space. What has that got to do with Japa? Space. And she said, I thought it was all about astronauts and Mars and Neptune and all those planets and all. Then she said the book was entitled Space, but it was all about how we should have only as much possessions as we need so that there is more space. Prabhu, Stri means one who expands the possessions, no? One who expands the possessions. Prabhu, I am myself an example of expanding possession, so what can I say? But then the only saving grace is that if we use it in Krishna's service, so then it is legitimate. So, and we should become detached from it as we are using it in Krishna's service. So I was thinking how we don't know how much we accumulate, and what is that mode of passion, no? We'll go shopping and we don't even intend to buy something. We'll go, oh, I think I need that. I think I need that. And when we are moving, then you know, oh my God, I have accumulated so many things. I don't even need all this. So Mahamaya Mataji, she got one very good point in that book, Space book. She said, in that book, the author says, if you haven't used something for a whole year, then get rid of it. That is, if you need it, then you'll use it in summer or winter or whatever. During the year, you'll use it. But if you haven't used it at all, get rid of it. And one of my elder god sisters, her policy is, if her husband buys her something from the house should go out. I mean, if
very good thing.
So her husband, if we give him gifts also to take to his wife, he'll say, oh my God, do I have to take this now? She's going to think what to put out or what to give away.
No, whatever the gifts I'm getting, your things will get thrown out.
Hare Krishna. In that context, I have a story, Prabhu. There is one friend of mine, he moved from Westby to Warriewood area, in northern beaches side of it. He moved some stuff from here to his garage. For last 2.5 years, it's sitting there. And he said, now we are thinking why we accumulated. He's got two kids and all those things, like he said. And he said, it's very hard to throw it away. As we all attached to it, as Mataji was saying. For 2.5 years, they are all packed in the boxes. All these boxes are packed in garage, which is occupying one space of the car, and his car is actually getting parked outside, and one car is inside. And 2.5 years, they haven't. Almost, it's now 3 years, so 3.5 years now, and they said we haven't touched that at all. So
yeah, that's the storage business is doing so well. Okay, I think we should.
We are like the Sad Goswamis. Every night you sleep under a different tree, so then you don't accumulate anything.
So
and why do we
so
have
then
to
you should be happy to travel every weekend to different cities. That happens.
I'm shooting myself in the leg.
He's complaining, Canberra today, Sydney tomorrow. A different tree, better than different tree. Canberra tree today,
Can't
Sydney.
keep up. The physical body can't keep up.
Yeah.
The
we have
soul is
to
active
do this according to our level of advancement. That's the point I'm making. According to our advancement, it's good to read back Goswami in different tree. We are not on that level. So therefore we have to understand. So we want to, at whatever level we are at, maintain that. But idea should be like that. Yeah.
Remember Tukaram, like very big fan of Tukaram, Sant Tukaram.
Oh, I love Sant Tukaram.
So we have seen the movie, Marathi movie, and the way the way he was all the time constantly in the mode of goodness. Still he was in this world, but still he didn't care about anything because his house was empty. He didn't earn anything. He was like whatever Pandurang is giving me, that's all. If he wants me to not to have food, he won't have the food. So it's just like he was not accumulating anything. Still he was in the mode of goodness. So it's really good example that he was saying like, I will do it, but if other person is benefited, then only I will do the job. So that's how it's very hard for us to. Yeah, and then he's really good example of a good devotee.
Those are ideals for us. So, but we have to work towards that. No? We can't be on that level. We understand that is the expected level. That's where we want to be. But right now we're not. So we have to perform austerities according to a level of advancement. However much we can handle, we do that. And little bit more. That's why Bhakti Charu Maharaj told me, you should be in a stretch zone but not in a panic zone. You should expand to stretch, not be a comfort zone all the time. You have to come out of the comfort zone into a stretch zone. But we should not go beyond the stretch zone to panic zone when it gets out of control, too much. One stretch is too much, then it'll snap. So if you pull rubber band too long, it'll snap. So we should not get to snapping point. That's where the balance is required. And that's not easy. Yes, Nandgokul Prabhu?
I think Kadam Kanan Maharaj actually mentioned that in one lecture in temple, I think Sunday Feast lecture. He says we have three balls of sadhana, service and our health. We have to keep juggling them all the time. We cannot drop any one of them because that will be like disastrous. So we have to keep juggling these three balls. So that example is like good. I thought.
Yeah, good. It's very good.
Yes, health, sadhana and service. If we do one of them too much, we will drop two other balls. And if we do one of the other two, we will drop the other ball. So we have to keep juggling them three balls nicely all the time.
Very good. Thank you. All right, we have gone over time. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai. And